Picture for a second the most magnificent, incredibly complex machine in the known universe. I'm talking about your brain. It is an absolute marvel of biology, quietly processing millions of inputs a second, keeping you alive and helping you navigate the world every single day. But inside this incredible biological hardware, there are these ancient echoes, ghostly commands from a time long, long forgotten. So today we're diving into a fascinating scientific documentary of your own mind. In this explainer, we're going to uncover how ancient survival instincts are still quietly shaping your everyday decisions, and more importantly, how you can actually stop them from controlling your life.
So imagine this scenario. You're staring down the chance to completely change your life. You've got this brilliant idea to start a business. It's an amazing modern opportunity, right? One that could literally give you unprecedented freedom.
Or maybe it's more of a creative leap. You want to launch a YouTube channel, sharing your unique voice and perspective with the entire globe, all with just a click of a button.
Or perhaps it's a massive professional milestone. You're staring right at the application for your absolute dream job. Or maybe you just want to walk across the room and introduce yourself to someone who could completely change your future. But then you hesitate. You start to overthink. You tell yourself, well, maybe later. And in the moment, it feels like you're making a really careful, rational decision.
But what if you actually aren't? What if a deeply buried part of your brain, built tens of thousands of years ago, is actually making that decision for you? The truth here is honestly kind of shocking. Many of your biggest life choices are being heavily influenced by fears that evolved long, long before modern civilization even existed.
Chapter 1. Your ancient survival brain. To really understand why we hesitate today, we have to zoom way, way out from our comfortable modern lives and look at the massive, epic scale of human history. Modern life is incredibly new. Think about it. Smartphones and social media, barely a few decades old. Cars and modern offices, just about a century. But your brain? It evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in a wild, unforgiving world of dense forests, apex predators, harsh weather, and tiny, highly vulnerable tribes.
Back then, your survival depended entirely on making lightning-fast, decisive judgments. And the brain learned one simple, incredibly ruthless rule. If something feels risky, avoid it. That specific strategy kept our ancestors alive. If they heard a sudden rustling in the bushes, assuming it was a deadly predator was absolutely always the safer choice, because the cost of being wrong was enormous. It literally meant death. And here's the wild part. That exact same survival software is still running inside you right now. The environment around us changed in the blink of an eye, but our brains, well, they changed much, much more slowly.
Chapter 2. The Evolutionary Mismatch.
The contrast between our deep past and our present reality is honestly jarring. On one side, we have the ancient threat, exile from the tribe. Thousands of years ago, being rejected by your group was a literal death sentence. It meant losing your food, your protection, the whole shebang. On the other side, we have the modern equivalent, internet criticism, or maybe a failed job interview. The threat isn't physical anymore at all. It's purely social. Yet your brain completely fails to distinguish between the two. When you face rejection today, your brain activates the exact same survival systems that used to prevent you from being exiled out into the dangerous wilderness. And you can see this mismatch popping up in everyday life all the time. Your ancient brain is basically acting like a hyper-vigilant bodyguard that simply does not understand the modern office. When you stand up for public speaking, your heart races as if you're sprinting away from a predator. When you post your first video online, you feel physically exposed to the elements. When you apply for a promotion, you imagine these catastrophic worst-case scenarios of total ruin. That is exactly why your modern fears feel so intensely, physically real. Most of us aren't running from wild animals anymore, sure, but the brain still reacts as if danger is lurking behind every single corner.
Chapter 3. The Comfort of the Familiar. These ancient fears, they don't just create passing anxiety. They are the invisible mechanics quietly running your choices. And the most dangerous decisions are often the ones you never even realize fear made for you. Why? Because fear rarely steps up to the mic and says, "Hey, I'm stopping you." Instead, it puts on a clever disguise. It masquerades as prudence. When fear says, "Let's wait until the timing is perfect," what it actually means is you're delaying an important decision. When it whispers, maybe you're not quite ready yet, it's actively just avoiding uncertainty. When it tells you to play it safe, it's choosing a comfortable routine over any kind of meaningful growth. And just like that, literally years of your life can pass by. This whole thing happens because your brain is ultimately a prediction machine. It is constantly, obsessively trying to predict what will happen next just to keep you safe. Familiar situations, those are super easy to predict, and that saves precious biological energy. This is exactly why routines become so incredibly comfortable and why habits are so hard to break. Stepping outside your comfort zone is biologically stressful because the brain fundamentally mistakes unfamiliarity for danger.
But here's the thing. Growth always begins where prediction ends. Think about that for a second. Every single meaningful achievement in human history started with a leap into uncertainty. Every new skill you have ever learned once felt deeply, weirdly uncomfortable. The reality is that every successful person out there hasn't somehow magically conquered fear. They've simply chosen to walk right through it instead of waiting for it to miraculously disappear.
Chapter 4. Taking Back Control.
Now, the goal here isn't to eliminate fear entirely. Not at all. Fear is still an incredibly useful survival signal. The goal is to recognize when that fear is completely outdated. So here is your exact biological manual override. Step 1, recognize the outdated fear the second it bubbles up. Step 2, ask yourself a really powerful clarifying question. Is this actually dangerous or simply unfamiliar? Just asking that single question can instantly change the entire trajectory of your decision. And step 3, survive the discomfort. By consciously pushing through that weird feeling, you literally update your brain's internal prediction models.
And you can actively retrain your brain through these little micro-actions, or what we can call small acts of courage. Speak up just one time in a meeting. Open that blank document and finally start the project you've been putting off. Hit publish and share a piece of your creative work. Initiate that difficult conversation you've been dreading. Because each time you survive this modern social discomfort, your brain realizes, oh wait, I didn't die. It updates its predictions. Slowly, what once felt completely terrifying becomes completely ordinary. That is the true, hardwired biological mechanism for growing confidence. You don't avoid the fear. You actively teach your brain that discomfort does not equal danger.
So, the absolutely crucial point I want you to take away is this. Your brain is not your enemy. It is simply doing exactly what evolution trained to do over hundreds of thousands of years: protect you. But the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of change, these aren't red lights telling you to stop. They are merely reminders that your ancient brain is trying to keep you safe in a world that, quite frankly, no longer exists. Real growth begins the very moment you realize you don't have to obey every ancient alarm your brain triggers. Your future shouldn't be controlled by the problems your ancestors faced, right? It should be shaped by the choices you make today.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a direct challenge. I want you to ask yourself, what is one decision you've been postponing simply because of fear? Think about that carefully. I invite you to stop hesitating and commit to taking just one small step toward it this week. Push through the unfamiliar, update those ancient biological predictions, and take back control of your incredible mind.